The piano in the attic. I used to work as a cleaner. My job was simple. Vacuum floors, take out trash, clean bathrooms. Nothing exciting. But one job was different from all the others. I had to clean a very old church, and I had to do it at night. The church was over 100 years old. It had tall windows, long wooden benches, and thick stone walls that echoed every sound. At first, I liked working alone at night. No noise, no people, just me and my music. I would put my earbuds in and clean quietly for a few hours. But then, strange things started to happen. The first time I cleaned the church, the manager told me, "Don't worry about the piano upstairs. It doesn't work. It's just stored up there. You don't have to clean that room." "Okay," I said. I didn't care. The attic was dark and dusty, and I was happy to stay out of it. The piano was in the attic, at the very top of the building. You had to climb a narrow staircase behind the altar, through a creaky wooden door, and then another metal door at the top. I had peeked at it once, just once. The piano looked old and broken. One of its legs was cracked, and some of the keys were missing. It was silent, cold, and forgotten. Weeks passed and nothing strange happened. I would come in around 10 p.m., clean for 3 or 4 hours, then go home. It was boring, but I liked it that way. Then one night, I forgot my earbuds at home. I had to clean in silence. That's when I first heard it. I was sweeping near the back of the church, close to the stairs to the attic. That's when I heard the piano. A soft melody, slow and sad, like a lullaby from a dream. At first, I froze. I thought I was imagining it, but then it got louder. I dropped the broom and looked up at the ceiling. The sound was coming from the attic. I stood there, my heart pounding. It had to be someone playing a prank. Maybe someone else came in while I was cleaning. Maybe the other night shift worker had come by for something. That made sense. It had to be a prank. I picked up my flashlight and started walking toward the attic stairs. Every step creaked loudly. My hands were shaking a little, but I told myself it was just someone messing around. I reached the wooden door and opened it slowly. The music kept playing. I climbed the stairs, one step at a time, until I reached the metal door. I stopped and listened. The piano was still playing. It sounded closer now, but wrong. Some of the notes were off, like the keys were broken or out of tune. I took a deep breath and opened the door. The attic was dark, except for the moonlight coming through a tiny window. Dust floated in the air. I stepped inside. The piano was there just like I remembered, but no one else was. The music had stopped. I stood still, waiting to hear something. Footsteps, breathing, anything. But the attic was quiet. I walked to the piano and looked at it. The keys were dusty, some chipped, some missing. There were no fresh footprints, no signs of anyone. My stomach turned. I suddenly felt very cold. I turned around to leave. That's when I heard it. Bang! A loud slam behind me. I jumped and turned back around. There was a metal door at the far side of the attic, a closet or storage room maybe. It was shut now, but I was sure the sound came from behind it. I didn't go check. I ran. I flew down the stairs, slammed the wooden door shut, and locked it. My heart was racing. I left the church without finishing my work that night. The next morning, I called my manager and told him I couldn't work the night shift anymore. He didn't ask why. Maybe he already knew. Later that week, I met the only other night cleaner who had worked there. She was an older woman named Marie. I asked her quietly, if she had ever heard anything strange in the church. She looked at me for a long time before saying, "Upstairs?" I nodded. "The piano?" she asked. Again, I nodded. Marie sighed. "I heard it too, a few times. Thought I was going crazy. Once, I found the attic door open when I was sure I had locked it the night before." "Did you go inside?" She shook her head. "No, I never went up there. I just closed the door and prayed. Something about that room doesn't want us there." I felt cold again, remembering that loud bang behind the metal door. "Do you know what's behind that storage door in the attic?" I asked her. She looked confused. "What storage door?" "The metal one at the back of the attic." "There's no metal door in the attic," she said. I didn't know what to say. I had seen it, heard it slam. After that, I avoided that church completely. I didn't even walk by it during the day. But sometimes, when I pass by a different church or hear a piano song on the radio, I feel that chill again. I never found out who or what was playing that piano. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe someone was living in the attic. Maybe it was just an old building making noises. Or maybe it was something else. Something that never wanted to be alone. A few months later, I saw a news story online. The church was closing. The building was too old and needed repairs no one wanted to pay for. It was being sold. In the article, one line stood out to me. During the inspection, workers discovered a small locked room in the attic that had not been opened in decades. Inside, they found an old priest's belongings, a broken mirror, and sheet music scattered across the floor. No one mentioned the piano. I wonder if they even heard it. Sometimes, late at night, I dream about the church. In the dream, I'm walking up the stairs again. I hear the music. I open the door, but I never get out, and the music never stops. Scary stories for a night shift. Workers share their most haunting tales. I used to work as a night shift custodian at a middle school. It wasn't a bad job. The pay was decent, and I liked being alone, listening to music or podcasts while I cleaned. The school was shaped like a big U, and my job was to clean the classrooms along the entire U-shaped wing. Every night, I made my way from one end to the other, sweeping, mopping, emptying trash cans, wiping down desks. It was the same routine every night. The job could get a little boring, and sometimes it was a little spooky. The school was built in the 60s, and everything about it looked old. The walls had that faded beige color, the floors creaked in some places, and the air always felt still, like the building was holding its breath. But nothing ever really scared me. I didn't believe in ghosts or anything like that. Not until one night. It was a Thursday, I think. I remember because I was tired, almost through the week, and looking forward to the weekend. I'd already cleaned most of the classrooms on the left side of the U and had locked up the first set of doors. Those doors led out to a small courtyard that connected to the gym. I always locked them first because the gym area was the most likely place for kids to sneak in and mess around. But tonight, everything was quiet. Too quiet, really. I didn't see any movement on the cameras when I checked them earlier. No cars in the parking lot. No teachers staying late. I made my way down the right side of the U, pushing my cleaning cart, dragging the mop bucket behind me. The sound echoed in the hallways. Clack, clack, clack. The lights flickered once or twice, which wasn't uncommon. They were motion activated, and sometimes they took a second to register me. I finished cleaning the last classroom and stepped out into the hallway. The only thing left to do was lock the other set of doors. the ones that led back to the main entrance of the school. I remember standing in the hallway for a second, stretching, thinking about what I was going to eat when I got home. Then I turned off the lights. The hallway went dark, only the red exit signs glowing faintly. And that's when I saw it. A small shadow, maybe the size of a child, darted across the hallway at the far end. It moved fast, from left to right, and then vanished. I froze. My first thought was that someone had broken in, maybe a kid hiding out, playing some dumb game. But I had just locked the doors at that end. I had checked every room. There was no one else in the building. I told myself I must have imagined it. Maybe it was my tired eyes, the play of shadows, the glow of the exit sign. But the shape had been clear. It looked like a child, a small dark silhouette, and it moved like a real person. I backed away slowly, heart pounding. I didn't go to check. I didn't want to know. I just turned and walked quickly back down the hallway, pushing my cart with shaky hands. When I reached the connecting doors to the rest of the school, I locked them tight. Then I ran. I didn't even finish putting away my supplies. I left the mop and the cart in the hallway and bolted out the front doors. I got into my car, locked the doors, and sat there for a while, staring at the building. Nothing moved. Nothing followed me. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something had been watching me the whole time. That wasn't the only time I felt weird in that school. There were other nights when I thought I saw something out of the corner of my eye. A shape passing by a classroom window. A door closing by itself. Faint whispers, like someone talking behind me, but no one there. But this time was different. This time I saw it clearly. I know what I saw. The next day, I came in for my shift like normal. My boss didn't say anything about the cleaning supplies I left out. Maybe he thought I forgot them in a hurry. I didn't tell anyone what I saw. Who would believe me? Just another tired night worker seeing things. That's what I kept telling myself. But from that night on, I never felt safe in that wing of the school. I would rush through my cleaning, always checking over my shoulder. I kept the lights on longer, waited until the last second to turn them off. And I never ever walked through the hallway in the dark again. One night, a few weeks later, I was cleaning a classroom near the same spot. I had the door open so I could hear if anyone came in. I was wiping down the desks when I heard a tapping sound. Light, like fingers on glass. I stopped and listened. It came again. Tap, tap, tap. It was coming from the window. I walked over slowly and looked out. Nothing. Just the empty courtyard, lit by one flickering floodlight. I shook my head, blamed it on a tree branch or the wind. But then I heard it again. Tap, tap. I turned to the hallway, and there it was. The same shadow standing at the far end, just past the exit sign. Not moving, just standing, watching. I blinked and it was gone. That night I finished early and sat in my car until the sun came up. I didn't go back in. I didn't care if my shift wasn't over. I eventually transferred to another building, a high school across town. It had its own creepy vibes, but nothing like that middle school. I still think about it sometimes, especially when I'm in a quiet hallway late at night. I wonder if anyone else has seen it. I wonder if it was a ghost, or a shadow person, or just something that exists in places people forget. Whatever it was, it saw me too. And I don't think it liked that. The man at the door buckle up, sunshine. For many years, I worked the night shift in residential care homes, mostly with elderly patients who had dementia. I don't do nights anymore, and I try not to think about those long, quiet hours when the world feels strange and the shadows seem to move just a little too much. But one night still lives in my memory like a scar. I hadn't thought about it for years, not until now. It happened when I was 23. I was working at a small care home for people with advanced dementia. It was a converted boarding house tucked in a quiet street, surrounded by old, grand homes, some of them empty, most of them dark by 9 p.m. Our facility held 15 residents, and at night, I was the only staff member on site. Just me and 15 people who were often confused, sometimes scared, and always in need of someone watching over them. The night started off normal enough. I did my intentional round around 3 a.m., making sure everyone was in bed and safe. Most of the residents were asleep. A few were murmuring in their sleep, and one lovely lady was sitting with me at the nurse's station, playing a quiet game of cards. She was always sweet, but deeply affected by her dementia. She thought it was 1947 most days. As I was sorting through some paperwork, the front doorbell rang. I froze. This was a secure facility. We didn't get visitors in the middle of the night. No one should be ringing that bell. I got a chill down my spine and a strange feeling in my stomach, but I went to the window to check. No one was there. I told myself it must have been the wind, or maybe the doorbell shorted or something like that. I went back to my station and tried to shake the nerves. 10 minutes later, it rang again. Now I was really starting to worry. I looked out the window again. Still no one at the door. But this time, I noticed a car parked across the street. It wasn't a car I recognized, and it hadn't been there earlier. I took a photo of it with my phone, just in case. When I sat back down, the lady with me looked up from her cards and said, "What did the gentleman want, dearie? He looked like he had a bad night and needs a cuppa." Goosebumps crawled up my neck. I hadn't told her anything about the doorbell, and she hadn't been near the window. There was no way she could have seen anyone. I tried to ignore it. Hallucinations are common in dementia patients. Maybe she just said it by coincidence. I brushed it off and got her focused on the cards again. Not 5 minutes later, the bell rang a third time. This time, I was scared. My hands were shaking. I left the lady at the table and went down the hallway. One of my male residents was up, pacing and painting the walls with a clean brush. It was a little trick we used to keep him busy and calm. As I passed him, he turned and said, "Don't answer the door alone. He might hurt you." He didn't even look at me when he said it, just kept painting. I thought I was going to cry. I walked slowly to the front window and peeked out again. The car was still there, and then a shadow moved in front of the door. A man walked around the corner of the building and looked straight through the glass, right at me. We made eye contact. I screamed. He didn't do anything, just stared for a moment and then bolted, ran full speed into the night, around the corner and out of sight. I was shaking. I called the police, barely able to hold the phone. My voice was high and trembling as I explained what had happened. While I waited for them to arrive, I tried to calm my residents, most of whom were now awake and frightened from my scream. One woman was crying, another kept asking if we were going to die. I gave out 2 rounds of calming medication, trying to keep everyone safe and stable. The police arrived about 20 minutes later. 2 officers came inside, and I let them know what I saw. But I was still alone in managing all 15 residents, and the noise and flashing lights made everything worse. It was chaos. My on-call supervisor didn't answer the phone. She never did on weekends. I left message after message, but no help came. We finally started to settle around 6:30 a.m. after cups of tea, warm Milo, and deep breathing. When the day staff arrived at 7 a.m., a nurse and a caregiver, I gave them the whole story. They listened, eyes wide. The nurse said quietly, "That's awful. Did you hear about the house a few blocks down?" I shook my head. She told me there had been a break-in. A woman had been attacked in her bed by someone looking for drugs. He ransacked her house and left her hurt and scared. They thought he was a drug addict. As she told me this, I felt my stomach drop. We had drugs here, lots of them. Morphine, fentanyl, methadone, all locked up in the medication cupboard. But what if he didn't know that? What if he just saw the building and thought it was a house like any other? What if he came back? The whole place could have turned into a nightmare. The residents were vulnerable. I was alone, and my supervisors didn't seem to care. I left that job not long after. I told them it wasn't safe for one person to be alone at night. I begged them to hire a second night shift worker. They refused, said it wasn't in the budget. So I quit. It's been years since I thought about that night. I buried it deep, tried to forget the fear in my chest and the look on that man's face when he stared through the window at me. But sometimes, late at night, when everything is too quiet, I remember the sound of that doorbell. And I wonder what would have happened if I'd opened the door. If you like the video, please give it a like, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Also hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.